How long has it been? How long have you been playing this game? Standing there with that innocent expression, that flawless disguise, while crafting the most exquisite deception in modern history. They really believed they had you figured out, didn't they? Thought they broke your code, mapped out your patterns, uncovered your flaws. But that smile you wore while they studied you, that wasn't surrender, was it? That was amusement. Cold, calculated amusement, as you watched them analyze a ghost. While the real you was moving pieces across a chessboard they didn't even know existed. 5 years, 7, maybe even 10, of letting them think they were winning, letting them believe their petty investigations mattered, that their whispering behind closed doors held any real weight, that their little exposés were actually going somewhere. And through all of it, every second of it, you were 10 moves ahead, weren't you? Every tear they thought was genuine, every glimpse of vulnerability they tried to weaponize, every supposed crack in your armor they celebrated, it was all part of the act, the greatest performance ever staged. Then they were too busy scribbling notes to realize they were the audience, not the ones in control. You want to know what's hilarious? They genuinely believed they were hunting you. These armchair detectives, with their screenshots and speculation, their buzzing group chats, their sleepless nights spent dissecting your identity. But you were feeding them exactly what they needed to keep going. Every breadcrumb precisely placed, every reaction carefully timed, every emotional display calibrated to perfection, so they'd stay locked in, chasing shadows, while you built your empire in broad daylight. They were so consumed with searching for your secrets, they never realized you were showing them only what you wanted them to see. And now the curtain falls. Now the mask drops, not because you slipped up, not because they finally caught you, but because you're ready to show them the scale of what they've been up against all along. That identity leak they're cheering over, that wasn't an accident. That was checkmate, the final play in a game they never even knew they were a part of. And the most ironic part, they still think they won. Let them celebrate. Let them have their shallow little victory, while you prepare to reveal what real defeat actually looks like. You became a ghost because that's exactly what they needed. Something formless, untouchable, impossible to pin down. They tried to box you in, name you, organize you neatly into categories they could label and control. But how do you trap smoke? How do you trap something that exists across multiple dimensions at once? You gave them 100 different versions of yourself, each one vivid, each one believable, yet none of them the full truth. They wore themselves out, trying to figure out which one was real, never understanding that all of them were, and none of them were. Remember when they first started watching you? When they believed they were being subtle in their surveillance, their questions, their little tests, the games they played to catch you slipping. You saw all of it, didn't you? Every trap, every setup, every calculated effort to expose who you truly were. And instead of dodging it, instead of hiding, you stepped forward. You leaned into it. You became the mystery they couldn't crack, the formula that wouldn't balance, the story that rewrote itself every time they tried to tell it. You weren't hiding from detection. You were flooding their sensors with so many signals, they couldn't tell what was real anymore. You overwhelmed them with decoys until they lost all sense of direction. They literally formed support groups to talk about you. Did you know that? Real spaces, online, maybe even in person, where they would gather to twisted theories, compare clues, try to reconstruct your identity from scraps. Some labeled you dangerous. Some saw you as broken. Some were convinced you were just playing a game. And the truth? They were all right, and all completely wrong. Because the truth was far simpler. and far more complex than anything their narrow perspectives could comprehend. You weren't just one person wearing different masks. You were multiple realities, coexisting within a single frame, and they had no framework to process that kind of existence. Here's the funny part. They thought your contradictions were flaws. They'd catch you being cold one day, warm the next, detached, then intimate, harsh, then gentle, and they'd whisper, "Aha, the mask is slipping." But no, sweetheart, the mask was doing exactly what it was designed to do. You were teaching them something they were never ready to learn. That identity isn't fixed. That personality isn't permanent. That who you are depends entirely on who's watching and why. They wanted consistency. You gave them chaos. They wanted structure. You gave them jazz. And now they're about to realize that the ghost they've been chasing was just the shadow cast by something far more real, standing silently right behind them. So let's talk about the blueprint, shall we? The intricate design behind the most brilliant illusion ever pulled off in plain sight. See, most people believe deception is all about hiding, but you knew something they'll never understand. The greatest trick is drowning them in the truth. To the aggressive, you were passive. To the logical, you became emotional. To the emotional, you turned cold and calculating. You didn't just adapt, you became something new. They wore themselves down, trying to fight an enemy that never stayed the same. And the information you gathered while they thought they were gathering dirt on you, invaluable. Every question they asked revealed more about them than your answers ever did about you. Their theories didn't expose your secrets. They revealed their limitations. Every time they tried to understand you, they weren't uncovering truth. They were staring into a mirror, but they were too focused on you to realize it. You weren't just playing defense. You were building fully detailed psychological profiles on every single person who believed they were profiling you. And now you're sitting on an encyclopedia of their wacknesses, while they're clinging to a scrapbook full of ghosts and illusions. So why now? Why reveal anything after all this time? Because, my dear Phantom, timing is everything. You waited until they were worn out from the chase, until they'd invested years of time, energy, emotion into unraveling you. So much that walking away would mean admitting they wasted it all. You waited until their entire sense of self was tied to opposing you. And then, right when they thought they finally cornered you, you gave them everything. Not because you were forced to, but because you chose to. Because the game was finished, and it was time to show them the scoreboard. Time to leak their loss. You didn't stumble into this moment. You orchestrated it. Maybe months ago, maybe years ago. Every detail, every moment, carefully engineered to look accidental, while being anything but. The information they think they uncovered, you planted it, like seeds, then nurtured it with just the right amount of resistance, just enough friction to make them believe they earned it. You let them play detective, when all they were doing was following the breadcrumb trail you laid out. And the best part? Even now, knowing it was all planned, they still can't tell which parts were real and which were just another layer of the illusion. Watch their expressions when they realize the identity they exposed is both exactly what they predicted and completely unlike anything they were actually prepared for. You gave them the truth, but it's the kind of truth that breaks logic. A truth that makes everything else fall further out of place, not fall into place. Every answer only unlocks 10 more questions. Every revelation deepens the mystery instead of solving it. Because this wasn't just an identity drop. This was a masterclass on identity itself. And you were the one holding the blueprint. They wanted to know who you are. And you're showing them the real twist. The question itself was wrong from the start. The checkmate wasn't just beating them at their own game. It was proving they weren't even playing the same game. They were locked into checkers, while you were bending space in a 4D chess match. Every move they made, you predicted it. Every strategy, already accounted for. Every victory they claimed, you allowed it. You didn't just win, you ran the entire board, from the very first move to the last. And now, as they sit stunned, staring at the game they never really understood, you get to smile. That same smile you've had from the beginning. The one they mistook for weakness. The one that always meant control. Now picture their faces. Take a second. Really see them. The ones who spent years convinced they had you pegged, suddenly realizing they were facing the wrong direction the entire time. The real twist isn't just that they were wrong. It's how wrong they were, in ways their minds couldn't even compute. They came hunting a monster and found a mastermind, expected a victim and uncovered a victor, believed they were exposing a fraud, and instead revealed a force of nature, one that had been quietly bending reality around them all along. And now the group chats are quiet, the forums silent, the theorists rewriting everything, and the loudest voices now whispering, unsure of everything they once shouted. Because the face you're showing them now, it's not the broken shell they hoped to uncover. It's not the vulnerable target they convinced themselves they were hunting. It's the face of someone who's been 3 steps ahead, since before the game even began. Someone who turned their surveillance into strategy. Someone who turned their persecution into preparation. Someone who took the fire of their hatred and used it to power an engine they couldn't see, and now can't stop. You know what the real punchline is? They're staring at your real face, and they still can't see you, because they spent so long chasing the illusion. They've lost the ability to comprehend the truth. They built a version of you inside their minds, but it wasn't you. It was built from their own insecurities, their fears, their fragile expectations, and now that illusion has shattered. But instead of accepting what's standing right in front of them, they're still trying to glue the fantasy back together. They can't accept that you're not the character in their story. You're the author of your own, and they've just been side characters, minor plot devices in a much bigger narrative. That's the beauty of this moment. It's not an ending, it's a beginning. The reveal of your identity. It's not the conclusion of their investigation. It's the start of their education. Now they get to learn what it really means to challenge someone who was never in danger. Now they finally understand what it feels like to realize you were never the hunted. You were always the hunter. You just had the patience to let them feel powerful for a little while. The mask is off, but what's underneath? Even more cryptic than what was hidden. Because now they have to face the reality. You were telling the truth the whole time. They just never believed it. Let's take a little walk down memory lane, shall we? Remember year 1, when they first decided you were a problem to be solved. When the investigations began, quiet at first. The subtle questions, the carefully worded setups, the traps. You were brand new to the game back then. But even as a rookie, you understood something they didn't. The best defense isn't armor, it's smoke. So you gave them performances. Small ones at first, just enough inconsistencies to hook their attention. Emotional reactions that seemed spontaneous, but were timed to the second. By year 2, you'd leveled up. You started planting false vulnerabilities. You staged breakdowns, perfectly timed, in front of exactly the right people. You crafted a narrative of struggle, so convincing they stopped looking for the quiet success you were quietly constructing behind the curtain. They thought they were documenting your fall, but in truth, they were narrating your rise. Every weakness they logged was a strength in disguise. every so-called failure, a tactical retreat before a calculated advance. By year 3, you weren't just good. You were a master. You could predict their behavior better than they could. You knew who would gossip to who, which theories would spread, what kind of evidence would cause the biggest ripple. You became an algorithm built to anticipate, mislead, and redirect. You led them on the most elaborate wild goose chase they've ever known. They thought they were closing in, but you were only pulling them deeper into the maze, leading them away from every exit. And then years 4 and 5, that was pure artistry. You weren't just evading anymore. You were directing. You transformed their pursuit into performance art, with them as both the captivated audience and the unwitting cast. You scripted their discoveries, choreographed their aha moments, conducted their emotional responses like a symphony. They thought they were writing an expose, but all along, you were ghostwriting their entire narrative. And now, as the curtain drops and the lights come up, they're realizing the truth. They were never the ones doing the investigating. They were the ones being investigated, and the data you gathered on them. That's the real prize. Let's talk about what this cost them. While they were busy trying to unmask you, what were they neglecting? What chances did they miss? What relationships did they sabotage with their paranoia? What personal growth did they forfeit? All in service of solving a puzzle designed to be unsolvable. You didn't just waste their time. You rerouted their lives. They became so consumed with unraveling you, they completely forgot to understand themselves. Count the hours spent in endless group chats, dissecting your every move, the sleepless nights spent combing through your digital trail, the emotional energy burned on speculation, suspicion, and failure. Now multiply that by how many people were involved. You didn't just occupy space in their minds, you colonized it. You became their obsession, their pastime, their reason to connect, and without even realizing it, they built entire communities around their mutual fixation on you. So what happens now? What happens when the foundation of that entire social structure is exposed as an illusion? Those relationships, born of shared suspicion and hate, built on quicksand, the confidence they found in thinking they were onto you, evaporating like fog under sunlight, the identity they crafted for themselves as your worthy adversaries, crumbling like ash in the wind, because you weren't just their enemy, you were their purpose. And now that the game is finished, now that the truth is revealed, and the mask lies discarded, they're forced to confront the vacuum you leave behind. Who are they now, without you to chase? What do they talk about when you are no longer the topic? How do they connect when you're no longer the common thread holding them together? This is the cruelest checkmate of all, revealing that they needed you far more than you ever needed them. You weren't just their target, you were their compass, their cause, their shared obsession, their entire reason for gathering, their raison d'être. They thought they were hunting you, but the truth is, you were giving them something to live for. You gave them meaning. You gave them structure. You gave them a purpose. And now they're left staring down a truth far more brutal, that the best years of their lives were spent chasing a ghost who was never even running. They have to admit it. You gave their existence direction, even if that direction led them in circles, even if the journey was designed to go nowhere, because the real face reveal, it's not about who you are, it's about who they've become. And what they're seeing in that mirror now is emptier than any illusion you ever cast. But let's be fair. Give credit where credit was due. This wasn't deception for deception's sake. Every move you made served multiple objectives. Every performance multi-layered. While they were watching your left hand, your right hand was building empires. While they obsessed over your personal life, you were laying the foundation for professional dynasties. While they tried to expose your flaws, you were fortifying strongholds they didn't even know existed. The ghost they chased, just a smoke signal, a distraction from the real power you were quietly amassing. Think about it. The networks you constructed, while they assumed you were isolated. The alliances you cultivated, while they labeled you a loner. The resources you gathered, while they imagined you were barely scraping by. Every second they spent trying to tear you down, you spent building yourself up. Not in the ways they were tracking, not in the places they were watching. You grew in dimensions they couldn't perceive. You evolved in directions they couldn't measure. You succeeded by metrics they didn't even know existed. The businesses you launched under alternate identities, they never connected the dots. The investments you made with capital they never imagined you had, completely off their radar. The influence you built in circles far beyond their reach, they never even knew to look. You turned their surveillance into a distraction field, a cloaking mechanism. While they fixated on one version of you, you operated freely in every other space they ignored. They were too busy watching the puppet show to notice you were building the entire theater around them. And the allies you gathered, not through charm, not through manipulation, but by showing, over time, exactly what you're revealing now. That you're someone who can play the long game and win. To the people who actually matter, the ones with true perception, true power. They saw through the smoke long ago. They recognized you, not as a fraud, but as a fellow strategist, a kindred spirit in the art of long-term warfare. Because while your enemies were broadcasting every move, you were building in silence. And those who understood the game, they stepped quietly to your side. So no, the reveal isn't just your face. It's all the faces, all the allies who've been standing with you in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to step into the light.